I've been pretty much screaming from the mountaintop for almost 3 years about the idea that the devil's in the details. And anybody that's truly down in that muck, looking for an exit through the details, it isn't going to work. You got to take a macro view, see how things really are, and realize that maybe you're dealing with, maybe the whole damn story is wrong. I mean, when I brought to light that the Bible was a copyrighted piece of literature, and that the certificate of live birth person is a character within that copyrighted piece of work, now all of a sudden you realize that if you're going to wear the clothing of that character, you're subject to the author or the copyright holder of that work. So now what's the problem? See, when you have a different set of eyes, you can start to deal with the real problem, which might be all of it. Maybe all of it's the problem. Maybe if you believe that in the beginning, i.e. Genesis, is your world, maybe that's the problem. Maybe you go into that alternate universe through a belief system in the beginning, because the words in the beginning, not to step on toes, is the beginning of a story, which terminates with the destruction or the end of that story or world. It doesn't end reality. And it also doesn't begin reality. It's the beginning of a story, and it's the end of a story at Revelation. But the world, reality, is way bigger than that story. So if you're willing to subject yourself to copyrighted material, then be willing to bend a knee to the owner of that copyright, because that's what you're doing. That's what you're doing. So you got to back out far enough and realize that a story is just a story. An author is just an author. Authority and author are one and the same. So if you're going to live by a literary character, you're going to die. Remember, there's another weird saying that the pen is mightier than the sword. You better damn well believe that, because the pen is what's enslaving the planet. So my whole thing is to take the Rosicrucian colored glasses off and start looking at objective reality, and stop following the lemming in front of you, and start thinking for yourself. You know what? When something is right in front of you, it is right in front of you. You shouldn't be able to get talked out of it. If somebody's getting beaten down by a cop right in front of you, understand that there's something going wrong there. That's not acceptable behavior. But we have been conditioned to believe that kind of stuff is acceptable. Oh, he must have done something wrong to deserve that. No. Very rarely are people going to prison because they did something wrong. Very rarely. It's all commercial, and it's all copyright, which is what's sending people to prison. I like to at least prove to people that it's not just me making stuff up. This is I got a Black's Law 5th edition in front of me, page 167, under Born Alive. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to read something that will actually prove that the product, the stuff that came out after baby Kurtis, is the problem. It's the problem that Mandel House spoke of. It's Born Alive. This is the definition. Being the product of conception after complete expulsion or extraction from mother, irrespective of the duration of the pregnancy, which breathes or shows any other evidence of life, such as beating of the heart, pulsation in the umbilical cord, or definite movement of voluntary muscles, whether or not the umbilical cord has been cut or the placenta is attached. But here's the key line. It says, each product of such birth is considered live-born and fully recognized as a human person. A human person. So everything that came out of mother, besides me, is a human person. So the waste material legally is a human person. Now tell me that it doesn't fit perfectly into the biological property, the registration of biological property. By the way, there can be no paper on me. There can be no paper on Kurtis, because that would be a document of slavery. The birth record is not on me. It's an event. It's a record of an event, not a thing. Remember, this whole talk's about, what I'm going to talk about tonight is the principle of the thing. What I'm describing right now is the thing. The thing. Remember, names are for things. I'm describing the thing, and it's the biological thing. Now ask yourself this. Did that material that came out of mother after me, is it possible, was it even capable of self-sustaining life? Did it have a heart, lungs, brain? Did it breathe? Did it do anything? No, it absolutely did not. Was it alive when it came out of mother? Absolutely it was alive. But was it going to stay alive? No, it wasn't. In fact, if you look up the definition of decedent, all it means is dying. So that afterbirth material, that waste DNA, that was dying the moment it arrived. It was a decedent the moment it arrived, a legal decedent. It was dying. And what did they do with that? The remains, the stuff that was left behind as abandoned property. They gave it a name. And that name was the name that was on the paperwork that my mother, as author, but my mother filled out. Kurtis Richard Kallenbach. Kurtis Richard Kallenbach. That's the name of the afterbirth material. Now, the funny thing is, does that material match me? Does the afterbirth match me? Well, there's two sides to that. Number one, the chorion, which is my exact, well, it's a twin genetically, but obviously it didn't turn into a twin. It became something, it became afterbirth material. But that's the fetal afterbirth, which is called the chorion. That does match me genetically. But what about the maternal placenta, the paternal, or the maternal afterbirth? No. That is pure product of mom, and that does not have any biological father at all. So, depending on what they do with that genetic material, Kurtis Richard Kallenbach, I've been told this, by the way, is female, genetically female, which means it's a product of mother alone. A product of mother alone. Think about that. When dad lays with mom, when his sperm fertilizes mom's ovum, that action right there, that fertilization, that zygote that's created, that's the whole thing right there. But when that zygote, when it gets planted in the uterine walls, mom creates all the other material around it to feed oxygen and everything else, and nutrients. That's all mother product. There is no biological father to that. Does it remind you of anything? Like, I don't know, the story of Jesus? I'm just throwing it out there. So when this this fatherless afterbirth material, which is pure mom, think about this, pure mom, no biological father. It's an immaculate conception. No earthly father to that other child, which they even legally call born alive. Each product of such birth is considered live-born and fully recognized as a human person. But that one that came out after me has no biological father. It's pure mom. Pure mom. Anyway, what I'm trying to do is I'm pointing out that my mindset, I was no longer stuck in the idea, in the what I've been told or what I've been taught. And slowly but surely, everything started to make sense to me, even biblically. Everything I've just said up to now, it leads me to you. Oh, wait a minute. Peter, you think I'm talking about you, don't I?
No,
or don't you?
You're talking about the sheep, you.
I'm talking about EWE.
That's right. I got the memo.
The female sheep. The reason this is important is because everything that I'm talking about is literal. It's literary, and it's subject to a particular story, and it's the greatest story ever told. And so again, all of this leads me to you, and that's EWE. Yep. And in the Oxford Dictionary, EWE is a female sheep. And everybody's laughing at me right now. I can already hear them. Kurt's lost his mind.
No, I get it.
No, actually, I'm gonna take you on a path that might not be too enjoyable. Here we go. A female sheep. Okay, what is a sheep? This is out of Oxford Dictionary. What is a sheep? One is the one that we would all guess, a domesticated ruminant animal with a thick woolly coat, curving horns. It is kept in flocks for its wool or meat, and it's proverbial for its tendency to follow others in the flock. Now, wait a minute here. That's number one. Here's 1.1. A wild animal related to this, such as an argali, bighorn, and urial. Here's number two. A person who is too easily influenced or led. The party members had become sheep, and she refused to be taken in. Let me say that again. That was just a sentence. A person who is too easily influenced or led is considered a sheep. Number three, a person regarded as a protected follower of God. 3.1, and this is the informal. It says a member of a minister's congregation. So if you don't think that when a judge looks right in your eyes and say, do you accept the charges?
Yep.
What is he saying exactly? Is that a way to position you as a follower of some doctrine, some idea, some story? I mean, have you seen the word he's actually looking at?
No.
Do you actually actually know what he's addressing or who he's addressing?
Most
See,
don't.
I don't think so.
No.
I think that by you answering you're automatically put into a position of the sacrificial aspect or the sacrificial lamb. But let's go back to this a second. It says a person regarded as a protected follower of God. And there's an example in here, Luke 15:6. And this is the parable of the lost sheep. Luke 15:6, it says, and when he comes home, he calls together his friends and his neighbors, saying to them, rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep which was lost. I tell you that in the same way there will be more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous persons who need no repentance. I'm doing this because I'm trying to get back to the concept of the waiver as well. The middle stanza of the waiver says, and repent all transgressions against God. So again, it's funny that the parable of the lost sheep is back to the concept of you or being a member of a congregation or a person who's too easily influenced or led, and you can keep going all the way back up to an act of a private individual directed to the origin, termination, or alteration of a right. You realize that when that judge says, do you accept the charges, and you respond to him, is that a termination maybe of a right, or an alteration of a right, or an origin of a new right? Are you accepting the position of sacrificial lamb as the surety or the guarantor for whatever's going on in that society, that great society?
Many things about the baptismal name. Let me draw another picture. If anybody has a pen and paper, you need to do this. Draw yourself an archway, just like you would think of as an arch through, a doorway, an actual arch. You want to know who your arch enemy is? I know there's a lot of wordplay here, but that's all this is. All the words are just spells that bind you. You're spellbound, for crying out loud. Here it goes. And I'm using my name, so just put your name in here. You got an arch. On the left side of the arch, let's say at about 10 o'clock up there where it starts to make the curve, put in your given name, in my case, Kurtis. On the right side at about 2 o'clock, you put in the surname or family name, Kallenbach. Well, here's what's interesting about this. Perfectly at 12 o'clock, make yourself a pie shape or a pizza shape cornerstone or keystone. Well, here it's a keystone. It's not a cornerstone, but it's a keystone. And put the middle name or initial into that keystone. What is that thing? What is that keystone?
Okay, got it. Going to share. This is going to get hard and fast with people, so pay attention. Key, Greek letter shaped like an X. You have ki rho, which is Rome. Rho being spirit breath, and the key, which is a double cross. When you put an X in the mirror, it is the opposite, right? But think of it in terms of the keystone or the life stone. Ki, chi, in Asian is life, right? So I just want to make sure that people are listening and seeing outside of the box here, and how critical listening to Phoenician law and what it's all about. This is unbelievable. Keep going, Kurt. Keep going.
And I want to build on what you said before I finish up. The X, the Greek X, is also, it's chi as well, and that's the vital essence. That's called vital. And also the X, which is this is all going to fit together, folks. Just hang in there. The X itself, the St. Andrew's X or cross, is actually the sigil of Spain. When you look at the Spanish flag, the Spanish Empire, it's the red St. Andrew's cross, and so just keep all this in mind as I keep going. So where was I? I was talking about the arch. I'm drawing a picture of you you're gonna finally see who your arch enemy is. So I have Kurtis on the left, Kallenbach on the right, and in my pie shape at 12 o'clock that cuts right in the middle of this. Is the middle name. What is the middle name? Well, first of all, around 1900, the middle name didn't really exist. In Roman times, the middle name means something, and I'll explain that real quick. But the middle name never existed in America until around 1900. Why did they introduce the middle name then? Why did they create the middle name then? Because they needed the keystone, the philosopher's stone, the lens through which the light shines upon. Here we go. So if you got your picture of your arch there, Kurtis is the given name in most people's minds. It's the proper name. In fact, it's the only name. Kallenbach, the surname, is the family. What's funny about the keystone is it separates Kurtis from his family. It separates, it divides, it's a wedge between the two. But it's also holding together those two to create, through alchemy, through a form of alchemy. Now it has Kurtis Richard Kallenbach creating an entirely different character. It's not so it divides Kurtis from Kallenbach as well as holds it together in a new alchemical form. This is your arch enemy. This is your antithesis. This is the opposite of being. In fact, when you hear to be or not to be, this is the not to be. This is your arch enemy. Kurtis Richard Kallenbach is the arch enemy of life. It actually is death. In fact, if you think of the arch, it's the same damn shape as a tombstone. So take Kurtis Richard Kallenbach off the top of that arch and put it in all caps on it, and you got yourself your tombstone. Kurtis Richard Kallenbach is the dead entity. It has nothing to do with me.
I titled this Your Father's Watch because I don't think anybody really knows what's going on. You hear people arguing about the birth certificate is this and all that other stuff. The birth certificate ultimately, the certificated person ultimately is G.I. Joe, government issue Joe. It is the issue of national security. That birth certificated person is the national security issue. People have no idea that that's the promise. That's the sacrifice. Your father, your father's name, the last name of every man, woman, and child in America has been sacrificed. It becomes a syndicated piece of property that is here to make sure that the financial system called the United States, their whole system is in play only because of that name. I, as the father, my watch,
I have all the authority over reality in my own family. Over reality. I have no authority whatsoever. None. Zero authority in that other world, because the other world, the greatest story ever told, could be one world. In other words, the Pope has all the authority over that family. He's the father of that family. Remember, your dad said it, my dad said it, every dad says it. You live under my roof, you go by my rules. So when you're under the arch of the church, when you're living under the care of the church, or under the father, the priest, or the pope, you go by his rules. Canon law, whatever, it doesn't matter. You go by his rules. If you live under the Capitol dome, if the state is your father, you go by United States Code or any of this other garbage, the public law, or whatever. It doesn't even matter what it is. The point is that you've chosen another family, another father, and that father is protecting his child. Remember, you get to choose.
So let's just do one thing on the Libra Code real quick. It says, this is paragraph 38. It says private property, this is out of the Libra Code, private property, unless forfeited by crimes or by offenses of the owner, can be seized only by way of military necessity for the support or other benefit of the Army or of the United States. It says, if the owner has not fled, the commanding officer will cause receipts to be given, which may serve the spoliated owner to obtain indemnity. The receipt to that motherland, the receipt to that mother's DNA, is a certificate of live birth. If you have not fled, in other words, if you haven't run from the name, like a bunch of people are doing right now, is running away from their property, saying it's not mine, it's not my name, it's not my stuff, guess what? If you have not run from the name, if you have not run from the property, if you have not fled, a receipt will be given and you'll be able to obtain an indemnity. That receipt is the certificate of live birth. Understand that the certificate is not the record. The certificate is the receipt of the record. Remember that Mom, when she filled out the forms in the hospital, she did not put pen to bond paper. They created that bond. Mom created a record, but they created a certificate. See the difference? Mom put pen to paper and created a birth record, but the state created a certificate that evidences the record. And that evidence is your receipt. You go back into the pawn shop with your receipt, and now you get back the very deed, i.e. the record. You get back that stuff. You get to put that child to rest. You get to pull that, I don't know, maybe a good term for it would be, how about hostage? You get to pull the hostage away from the Catholic Church. You get to pull that biological hostage away from the Catholic Church. And that's my point, is that the certificate is not the record. The record is the very document Mom created. The author, the authentic record is what Mom actually physically signed. She did not create a certificate. She did not put pen onto a bond paper document. She created a record, but they created a certificate. So let's go to Webster's 1828 real quick and see what it says about certificate. Webster's 1828 says, and I'm going to go down to the transitive verb of that word. It says, to give a certificate, to lodge a certificate with the proper officer for the purpose of being exempted from the payment of taxes to support the ministry in a parish or ecclesiastical society. 2, to give a certificate to, acknowledging one to be a parishioner. And finally, the most important thing of all, it says, but such certificated person can gain no settlement. In other words, if that certificate is outstanding, if it hasn't been returned to the creator of that certificate, that if it's outstanding, you can gain no rest, no settlement. That character will wander, that ghost will wander the earth, will be a sojourner forever, that it will be on its journey forever until you return the certificated person back to the Creator. Remember, Mom did not create the certificated person, the state did. Mom put pen to paper and created a record of the birth, but she didn't create the certificate. The certificate is the receipt to the record, the receipt of that deposit made on your behalf as the beneficiary to the motherland. Remember the Suffolk Bible says when a man proves life? Remember, in the birth process, the captain, i.e. you, were thrown overboard off the vessel. The only thing that showed up on the shores of the hospital, the MASH unit in that Christian war, the War of the Waters, the only thing that showed up was the shipwreck, the vessel itself. The captain, i.e. the child, the biological child, was nowhere to be found, so he was lost at sea. So when you come home, when you come ashore to the motherland, the promised land, and the only way you can do that is what? Is by having the deed to that promised land in hand. Otherwise, the church lays claim to the promised land, lays claim to the motherland, and you can never get home except through the grace of the Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church.
You have to start thinking way outside of the box. Your imagination has to expand to start to meet the world. I mean, if you can't think of the Anno Domini timeline as a world unto itself, when they talk about parallel universes, the universal means Catholic. So the concept of a parallel universe, if Kurtis Richard Kallenbach exists on the Anno Domini calendar, and there's another calendar that runs parallel to that and it began earlier called the Old Testament, which is the Anno Mundi calendar. People don't realize how crazy this sounds, but today, I should look it up on the internet just to see what today actually is according to the Anno Mundi calendar. Today's date, the 19th of May, 2014. That's Anno Domini. That's the New Testament calendar. That's the Jesus Fish calendar. That's the Jesus Christ calendar. That's the Passion of the Christ play calendar. That's the calendar that Pope Gregory created and laid out in 1582. In fact, the Anno Domini calendar began in 1582.
That's right. That's how crazy it is.
Okay, now it's also called the Gregorian calendar, and it's also called the Gregorian epic. Well, I mean, big long books and stories, aren't they called epics?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if I convert May 19th, 2014 to the Hebrew calendar, it's called the 19th of Iyar, Iyyar, and the date, the year, is 5774.
Wow.
That's 3,760 years difference.
Wow.
So let's just look at that. The powers that be, we're going to call them the Zionists, the Old Testament Jews, it doesn't matter. The Society of Jesus, the Jesuits, those people in the know that are controlling the world, none of their children are born to the Anno Domini calendar. Why? Because the Anno Domini calendar, the Jesus Fish calendar, starts with the year 1 and goes to 2014.
Mm-hmm.
The Hebrew calendar starts at the year 0 and goes to 5774. So the Gregorian calendar is a subset, running parallel to the Hebrew calendar. Now, if today is 5774, to the powers that be, the bankers of the world, the people that own the world, I'm not saying planet, I'm saying world, that we know, the two-dimensional world. If they live in the world 5774, which is the Old Testament world, and Kurtis Richard Kallenbach was born September 19th, 1960, to the Anno Domini world, which is that character lives in the world that's 2014, which is a difference or 3,760 years in the past.
Yeah.
It's history.
Yeah.
Kurtis Richard Kallenbach is history. So the here and now, the right now, the moment in time that we live in is neither one of these calendars.
That's right.
It's neither calendar. Now, the thing that to remember though is that if you look at these calendars in a two-dimensional realm, if you put up one above the other, if you put 5774 above 2014, what you'll realize is that Kurtis Richard Kallenbach is down in the earth dead 3,760 years in the past. What's weird about the idea of time travel in their artificial fictitious realm is it's very easy to do. If I claim to be Kurtis Richard Kallenbach, I am here and now on September 19th, or I'm on the 19th of May, 2014. But if I am Kurtis Kallenbach and not subject to the Anno Domini calendar, but I might be subject to the 5774 Anno Mundi calendar, I can actually travel forward in time by releasing or letting go of the AD character. I can travel 3,760 years into the future by letting go of Kurtis Richard Kallenbach. In other words, remember, it's all in our head. The whole construct is in our head. If I claim to be a character on the one calendar, I'm subject to the powers that be in the other calendar. Now, let me ask you this. Can you hear anybody scream right now, George, that lived 3,760 years ago?
No.
Can you help them in any way, shape, or form do anything? Can you help any family member that lived 3,760 years in the past?
Well, figuratively speaking, no.
How about this? If your family member from 3,760 years ago bound themselves to a pledge or a promise,
exactly,
indefinitely, that bound your family, then what about when you arrive today into a courtroom that character was bound to that many years ago, and you're the only living relative?
Roman Catholic Church, Black's Law 5th edition. Here it is. It's going to go right past you. It says, the juristic personality of the Roman Catholic Church, comma, with the right to sue and to take and hold property. Oh, wait a minute. I already passed it. What is the definition of Roman Catholic Church? Here it is again. The juristic personality of the Roman Catholic Church with the right to sue and to... Oh, did you miss it?
The right to sue.
No, the juristic personality is the Roman Catholic Church. It's not a bunch of big stone buildings in Vatican City. It's not a bunch of big stone pieces of architecture. The Roman Catholic Church is the juristic personality. That this juristic personality is not... They've made it possible through the definition of born alive to create brothers or sisters or siblings that supposedly alive subsequent or after you. Did you or did you not? Do you recall any other sibling that came out after you?
No.
No, but the afterbirth is considered a human person.
Right.
So they've made it possible to create another version or a brother or sister. They call it a sibling, and it is a sibling you don't even know exists. They make it possible to give character to that sibling, and they call it juristic personality. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I'm going into the concept of this story. So juristic personality, juristic. Let's go to the word jurist. One who is versed or skilled in law, answering to the Latin juris perpetus, a legal scholar. The term is commonly applied to those who have distinguished themselves by their writings on legal subjects or to judges. Let me say that again. One who is versed, and it goes on to say, distinguish themselves by their writings. I'm going to the literal concept here. You got to hear what I'm saying. That's jurist. How about juristic? Juristic, pertaining or belonging to or characteristic of jurisprudence or a jurist or the legal profession. Characteristic. And finally, juristic act. One designed to have a legal effect and capable thereof. And here it is. An act of a private individual directed to the origin, termination, or alteration of a right.
Wow.
So that juristic personality that's created with the second coming, the second birth, the second person, human person, becomes for an act of a private individual directed to the origin, termination, or alteration of a right. When you lay claim to that juristic personality, you join the Roman Catholic Church as a member. A member. And, of course, that membership entitles you to all kinds of great privileges.